Hello, and welcome back to the Make It Count podcast. If this is your first time joining, we interview real builders, people that you probably pass on the street and don't even realize the level of activity, structure, businesses, people, you name it, that are going on. So if that interests you, please make sure to subscribe as well. Today's guests are Jennifer and Jason McAlister, Jason also known as Mac. Jennifer is a Christian author, speaker, and certified coach whose work has reached people through her books, her devotionals, coaching, and faith-based publications. Her writing comes from lived experience, including being near the finish line of the Boston Marathon when the bombing happened, and from the kind of faith that has been tested and not just talked about. Jason served in both the Marine Corps and Navy, from special operations to flying AV-8B Harriers with the Black Sheep Squadron. That's a mouthful, by the way. He went on to build Wraith Systems, a company whose technology supports fighter pilot training for the F-35 program. Here's what makes this conversation so strong, though, is that their story is different, but the thread's the same: preparation under pressure. Jennifer helps people trust when life doesn't go as planned, and Jason has built tools that help pilots train before the moment demands everything from them. And they're my friends, so I'm getting a little teary, sorry. Today, they've built a life around faith, service, endurance, family, and work that actually matters. So Jennifer and Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
What a great
morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and then me getting a little tripped up. Sorry, that's why this is live, right? We stream live. I don't edit because it's all about authenticity. I think everything today, especially in social and streaming, is so overbaked that this is just a chance to kind of be genuine.
Real.
So I know you, but for those who are watching for the first time, tell the audience about you.
Well, good morning. I think when we talked about this, I was going to jump in first. So Jason McAlister, yes, call sign Mac. We live in Fort Worth, Texas, married for 32 years, together 35. We've got 3 daughters. I think that's where the gray hair comes from, premature. You're outnumbered in the household 4-1. 5 grandkids. I'm originally from Southern California, but enlisted in the Marine Corps, as you mentioned, as soon as I got out of high school, and really haven't been back but to visit family and friends. And the military's taken us all over the country.
Yeah.
He's from Southern California. I'm originally from Northern California, but we met in college, and I've been following him around ever since.
Ah, that's so sweet. Now, the questions are going to kind of bounce between both of you, while also this is where conversational. So again, let's just see what comes out of it. So Jennifer and Jason, before people knew the books, Wraith Systems, the military career, the devotionals, or the public parts of your story, who were you becoming?
Would you like to start?
Sure. So average kid out of high school, again, Southern California. I had seen Top Gun back when I was 16, which was pretty impactful, but I had been exposed to flying early on. So I knew more than anything, I really just wanted to somehow get in the cockpit of an airplane. Grades weren't that great. I wasn't getting into the academy. So I kind of explored the different avenues that I thought catered to my strengths and sort of help minimize some of those weaknesses, like in math and engineering and some of those things you think pilots ought to have. So I ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps, like I said, and I used that enlisted time to kind of bolster a resume. So when I applied for one of those coveted flight slots, ultimately in the Marine Corps, that's how I did it. Yeah. Really, business, entrepreneurship, anything like that was not anything I was thinking of back through high school and college. It was really, how can I get into an airplane and fly? The second half of life, post-military, had to kind of reinvent myself.
Well, I noticed you said that you knew that you'd want to be in a cockpit. Mm-hmm. So when you think back to growing up, when was it that you knew that's where you kind of had a belonging?
My dad worked for the Pasadena Police Department, and he snuck me onto one of their police helicopters when I was a little kid. And I think that's where I was bit by the bug. Like, this aviation stuff is pretty cool. I think I want to fly, figure out how to do it for a living. Yeah. So it's set pretty early in.
That's great. I mean, that's a long time. That's a long
time. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of things trying to sideline you, and disbar you from, getting into the airplane.
Yeah. So Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah. I was always jealous of his, he always knew what he wanted to do, even when he was in high school. He had a list of his life, and I found it one time, and he had checked off, graduate from high school, go to Marine Corps boot camp, because he was prior service before he flew, get your degree. He had everything. He was going right along and doing all of that. And I was always in, because I think I changed my major 3 times in college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But after we got married, we had kids early, and so it was the most important job is being a mom. But I would watch him and I would think, oh my gosh, he's doing these amazing things. So I wasn't, of course, flying planes, but I think that was when I decided I wanted to do a marathon for the first time. Do something that in my own strength I don't think I can. It's going to take hard work, and so I started doing that. 2001, I think it was the first time. And as I've learned so much through endurance events, just because that's life, and God has been training me to trust Him since I've been 18 years old. Just one thing after another that I've had to learn to trust Him. And sometimes it hurts, like marathons hurt, but you're on the other side. So we're becoming stronger and stronger, and going from faith to faith for a long time.
Yeah. Now you mentioned 18. What's significant about 18 for you, Jennifer?
Well, I was a single mommy, going to college and doing everything by myself. And I met Jason when Marissa, my oldest, was 3 years old. So when I was talking about that list that I found, he never had get married and be a daddy before he even went to flight school, because we got married as soon as he graduated from college. But me being 18, I had to look up, because I could not do it by myself. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, is because the hard times made me realize I can't do this on my own. And God's been training me to trust Him ever since that day, and in so many other ways. But that's why I said 18.
Yeah. So Jason, with it not being on the list, right? Clearly, when was that moment that you knew that? Because clearly you are very decisive. There's no maybe, possibly. It's with you. It's, if you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. What added becoming, a husband and a father into that equation for you?
Yeah, being a checklist guy, how did I fit those 2 new things into the checklist right there? Husband and dad overnight type of a thing. As getting towards the senior year, and we knew is you graduate, you get commissioned as an officer, and then the Marine Corps owns you from then on out. And then it's just kind of a whirlwind of duty stations and training and activities. And as that time was coming, and I knew I was leaving Reno in this case, I had a choice to make: is that I want to take Jen and Marissa with me, or did I want to not? And it was pretty easy. Like, I think I want them with me on this adventure. So proposed, and we were married, commissioned, married, and then off to the basic school back in Quantico, Virginia shortly after that. We let Marissa finish up her kindergarten year of school in Reno, and then Jen joined me out there, and that was 6 months of gone. So first time away from home, newly married, and she was kind of by herself in a strange city, in a strange state, and I was gone most of the time, out in the field and training. And figure if you have a marriage that can survive that right off the bat, you're pretty well good to go for the long haul.
I had never left the West Coast until I met him, and I immediately went to the East Coast, and far away from family and friends. And he was gone all the time when he was doing the training at TBS in Quantico. But it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now you humidity as well.
Oh,
what in the world is humidity?
I got off the plane and at the Dulles Airport in DC, and I'm like, I can't breathe.
In July.
I never experienced humidity before. Now that's not true anymore. Never everywhere the Marine Corps sent us it was humid, but at the time that was the very first experience I'd had.
Well, as you say it, I think about the humidity in Texas. So what brought you all to Texas ultimately?
That's skipping ahead just a little bit.
I know.
When I left the Marine Corps active duty in 2002, and that was in Yuma, Arizona, one of the spots that isn't humid where the military or the Marine Corps will send you.
Mhm.
I really had 2 job offers post-military on the table. One was special agent with U.S. Customs right there on the border down in Arizona and Mexico. And the other, I was offered a pilot training position with Northrop Grumman, and then the newly kind of minted F-35 out here in Fort Worth at the Lockheed facility. So started with Northrop Grumman, but ultimately was in a Fort Worth facility. So got the those job offers same week. Prayed a lot about it because there was a little bit of a period without a safety net when I was getting out, and we didn't have anything to go to. The house had sold, and we were sort of, waiting for God to kind of give us direction. And ultimately, the position out here in pilot training with the F-35 sort of rose to the top pretty quickly, and we made the move 24 years ago this month, as a matter of fact. So it was 24 years ago, 2002. When we pulled chocks out of Yuma and moved to Fort Worth, and been here ever since.
Yeah, we left Fort Worth. We could have moved many times, and we choose to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
So and now all of our family, everyone's here. So our kids, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. But
I'm very Fort Worth proud. I have a cousin visiting Texas from Germany, and she drove up. She flew into Houston. If you live in Houston, people, I apologize. So sorry for you, but
that's
I know. I said, why in the world would you come to Houston coming, from Germany? So she gives me her logic. Well, when she came up to visit, she drove up. I said, this is Fort Worth. This is Fort Worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you guys travel and people ask you where you're from and they say Dallas, how do you respond to that?
We correct them pretty quickly. Like, no. Dallas and Fort Worth are 2 different things.
Worlds apart.
Don't let DFW Airport confuse you that it is becoming one giant metroplex, but just the culture and the personality and the feel of each city center is so different.
And now with the traffic, we very rarely get to Dallas. I mean, it's such a haul now. If it takes forever, so we stick close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so she said that Texans, and she meant it in a good way, but she said we're arrogant, right? And not that we're really proud. I went, okay, so take that Texas arrogance, and now if they're in Fort Worth, add another layer, because there's not a better place in Texas to live. It was funny. Who knows? Maybe she'll end up here. Yeah.
Agree with you.
Okay, so we talked about how the 2 of you. Well, we talked about when you met, not necessarily how you met, but how did you meet? And then what do you remember recognizing in each other early on?
We'll start.
Okay.
So we were both going to the University of Nevada, Reno in UNR. And I was walking down the steps in the education building, and I saw him he was sitting at a table with a friend. And I remember looking at him, and I had a thought that wasn't my thought. And it was, wow, I wish I could meet someone like him to spend the rest of my life with. And as soon as I had that thought, I thought, that is so weird. Why did I just think that? Because I had never met him before. And then it went away. And then it was probably about a week later that he came into Applebee's where I was waitressing. And I want to tell him.
So long before Walker Hayes made Fancy Like, the Applebee's song famous, that's actually where we met. I did not get to sit in her section, but I do definitely remember seeing her when I walked in with a buddy of mine for lunch. And no cell phones back then. Sorry, folks, if you're not really sure what that is. But we exchanged a few words, although nothing was set in stone. And then I went home, broke out a phone book. Again, you guys can Google that, see what that is. And I called the Applebee's manager, answered, and he wasn't too happy because I asked for Jennifer. And I asked her out on a date that night. And she said yes. Went to the movies, and that was pretty much it.
We've 35 years.
Yeah, been together ever since. So Applebee's.
Yeah. Woo! The great thing is I feel like I knew him my whole life. Even on the first date, it just felt comfortable. There wasn't that nervousness. He just has always been, I've just always been comfortable around you. So.
And if I could add just a little preamble there, much like she saw me on campus, there was a time when I passed her and I noticed her as well. It's almost like God was giving us a little preview of who your mate's going to be. Even though we didn't talk, it was like one of those sliding doors types of thing. And it wasn't until years later we kind of pieced, maybe not years, but we pieced together the timeline, and that was you. Well, that was you. and Applebee's was what brought us together. But there had been sometimes, and even going through photo albums, like I was at that party, but you weren't there, and we had a lot of overlap.
House. I mean, there's so many sliding doors with us that we should have met
years. Actually, a couple of years beforehand, we had some very similar paths crossed, but it didn't quite really connect until Applebee's, which is kind of funny when you sort of go back and put all those pieces together.
That's perfect timing.
So. Yeah. Well, the thought that's going through my mind is you all hadn't met. This man is calling you at work. One, how did you know her name, Jason? And two, how did you know that this was somebody that you would want to go on a date with, Jennifer?
Name tag. Name tag, Jennifer.
I didn't know if it was him or the friend that he was with.
That's true.
As I didn't know their names.
Yeah.
I had to tell him my home phone number because the manager was looking over at me like, get off the phone. So I felt a little weird giving someone I didn't know my home phone number. And then when he showed up at my apartment that night, I didn't know who was going to be at the door when I opened. It was Jason. So that was a little courageous, I guess, to just not even know who you were.
Yeah.
But I made a good choice.
Yep. Went to the movie. We even forgot what movie we went and saw. It took us years later because we actually were just so at each other and talking. We'd have been the ones people in the front row be like, shh, be quiet. Yeah. Watch the movie. Okay.
It's true.
Well, what movie was it?
It took us years we finally remember, like, I don't know, it was 5 years ago. We looked it up. It was Deceived with Goldie Hawn.
Not a good first date movie, by the way. Like a horrific relationship gone bad. I was like, maybe that was the only theater and that time that worked out for both of us to go to the show, but it certainly wasn't picked because, if we see this movie, she's definitely going to be picking up the vibes. It was a horrible first date movie.
I do have to brag on Jason, though, because this is one of the hard things. I told you I was a single mommy, and my daughter was 3 at the time. So when he called me, he said, would you like to go to the movies tonight? And I said, let me see if my grandma can watch my daughter. Yeah. And so he could have easily said, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that. And it didn't bother him, didn't faze him. And I don't think it ever did.
No.
So but that was at first when I said that, I figured he would just say, oh, sorry, won't be picking you up. No, and it's funny because our oldest daughter, she looks like him, acts like him. God knew who her daddy was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Pictures. You guys have just in general the most beautiful family. When you all get together and you get your pictures done, it's like the one that you expect to see when you go to buy a photo frame and somebody else's pictures in it. Like here it is.
You're so sweet.
Yeah. I don't know about all that, but I'm definitely honest. Okay. Let's see. Jennifer, you built a body of work through books, coaching, speaking, and YouVersion devotionals. How did that part of your life begin?
Well, it's funny because I've always liked to write and create and was a graphic designer for a long time, but it wasn't until the Boston Marathon bombing. And when that happened, I couldn't understand. I worked so hard. I had 12 marathons to finally qualify. And then I got to 26.1 of the marathon.
Yeah.
When the terrorist bombings went off, and I couldn't cross. And I kept saying to God, thank you for protecting Jason and I, but why? Why did this happen? But one thing I realized that day was how quickly life can be taken. And I truly thought that Jason was killed because I watched the building explode, that he was supposed to be waiting for me. And we didn't know there's only going to be 2. And so I was waiting to get hit. The fact that we're still here, he got stuck in traffic and there was only 2 bombs, but that really changed everything. I had an urgency to want to ask anybody that I knew and loved, hey, do you know where you would go if you died? Because it could happen like that. We had no warning. So as a counselor at a pregnancy center that I've been with for like 17 years, it's faith-based. So you're able to share the gospel if they're interested. And I would just ask that question, do you know where you would go if a bomb went off today? Because that's just the world we live in. And they would say no, and they would lean in. And that opened the door for me to share the gospel. And I was amazed how many people had never heard the gospel and how many people prayed to receive Jesus. So I wrote it. I started to write the book Press On,
Right.
and that is all about being a parent, the Boston. Everything is endurance. Like everything that we go through in life, it's going to be don't give up. All of that. So writing that book opened the door for me to start writing for YouVersion and Bible.com, and now those devotionals go out to the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started writing devotionals for a nonprofit. It was a company that was encouraging Christians to vote, and I did that for 2 years. But it's amazing how God took something. Well, what the enemy intended for harm, God used for good, for the saving of many eternal lives. But that's how it got started. Me writing was actually something bad that God used for good. So, and it's funny because we were talking yesterday. I can't remember if I was 18 or 19, but I was reading about why it was important to have a mission statement for companies. And I thought, well, then why don't they have us write mission statements for our life? Like when you're in school, why don't they say, write one for your life? And I think mine was very simple. It was, I want to go to heaven. I want to take as many people with me as I can. And so my whole life, even behind subconsciously or however, I'm always thinking about that. So whether I'm writing or whether I even had a company called Witness Through Fitness. It's faith-based workout wear. So even in running the marathons, I still wanted to create things that were pointing to Him.
Oh yeah.
So
well, that is such a good book. I've read the book, of course, Press On, and it was endurance. There was a lot of tests though too, because I remember, it's been a few years since I read it, but something happened to one of your daughters that you wrote about. There was an accident. Do you mind kind of just sharing a little bit about, because it really did. Yes, your book starts and kind of takes you through how you could have been at that finish line had there not been this divine moment on the route, right? Two, you get reading along the book, and next you know, you're dealing with something as a parent no one wants to be dealing with.
Yeah, it was out of a horror movie that morning because it's our middle daughter, Savannah, and she actually works here at Wraith. She's downstairs. We should bring her up. But she was going to a cross country meet. She was a great runner in high school, and I wasn't feeling good that morning because we always went to her meets. But you didn't have to drive by yourself, and she wasn't gone 20 minutes when I get a phone call, and she said, "Mom, I've been in an accident." And I said, "What?" She goes, are you okay? And she goes, "I don't know. There's a pole in my face." And I said, "What?" And she had missed a turn and hit the cattle fence. And one of the poles went right through the windshield. The first time I went through it, took out the roof, and it came back and it went right through her face. And this is our beautiful, talented 16-year-old daughter. And we don't know if she's going to live or die. She literally was looking down the pole. By the time Jason and I got to the scene, it was terrible. But we got in the ambulance. We get to the hospital, and I always brag on her for this because she had her cell phone, and she was looking at her face, and it was completely destroyed from what you can, especially when you're looking at your cell phone. And I said, "Savannah, honey," I go, please don't look at that right now. Plastic surgeons can do amazing miracles. I go, "Don't do that." And she put her phone down and she said, "Mom, I will never complain about my scars because I can see them." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I thought I lost my eyes for the first hour because she got hit so hard. She doesn't know if it's from the blow or from the blood, but she couldn't see." And here's the amazing thing. Now you can't even see the scars on her face, but to this day, she has never, ever complained about her scars. And it was just another example of how are you going to look at this? Are you going to become bitter? Or are you going to be better? And it was another reminder that life can be taken at that moment. And I used to worry. I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes worrying that something is going to happen to one of my girls. After that happened, I didn't worry as much because I realized God's in control. If He had every opportunity to take her. In fact, doctors and nurses, all of them said, "You've been given a miracle." We heard it probably 5 times from everyone. "You've been given a miracle." So it took away that sometimes moms, we think we're doing something by worrying. But when I realized we're not in control of that. So yeah, love to We'll have to bring her up so you can see how that you can't even see a scar anymore. But
Jason, what was going through your mind? I mean,
reliving that, I just think that was a tough to get the phone call for one. That's the one no parent wants.
Yeah.
The fact that Savannah is the one that made it at least helped a little bit because she was still able to get to her phone even though she couldn't see. So we got in the car. We got Skylar, our youngest, up and raced out to the scene. And you see this car just right out of a horror movie type of a thing with a pole through the windshield, blood all over the pole. And you're like, how could anyone have survived that? But she had kind of a Civil War bandage. I mean, the EMTs had her wrapped up in this giant gauze headband.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so you couldn't really see it. But true to character, she was movie quoting Monty Python for us. So she was actually trying to, it's merely a flesh wound.
I know I wouldn't get into the ambulance because I was afraid of what I was going to see. So I was standing outside the ambulance and just praying that, oh Lord, and the fireman goes, she wants you to come in. She needs her mom. And I walked in and she goes, it's okay, Mommy. It's merely a flesh wound.
Yeah.
She was trying to calm me down, and she's in the one that's been this terrible accident. So
yeah. So found a great plastic surgeon, put her back together. And so it came out, no head trauma, no brain injury. And, it just kind of, the pole came in and sort of double tapped her over each eye. It did do some damage to the nose, which has had some lasting effects. But overall, what could have been a really, really bad closed casket kind of a situation had the pole hit her initially when it came through at 60 miles an hour. Yeah. Instead, what it did is it kind of, like she said, embedded in the roof. And for every action, it has an equal opposite reaction. So what it effectively did is the car hit it. And as the car came back, the pole then was sort of retracted, and then it came back and hit her as it kind of came to rest, which is, we kind of get those pictures pop up every now and again on my timeline. It's like, yeah.
Well, it just, when you said as well, you can be bitter or you can let it make you better. I just think when I was reading the book Press On, that's what really, I was like, whoa, I was expecting all the endurance things, right? Mm-hmm. And so when that came up, and don't bring her up, that would be terrible for her. She'd be like, what do you want? What are you doing to me? But you think about a 16-year-old, social media was a thing. It was already a thing. Mm-hmm. Granted, it was MySpace, but it was a thing. Okay. To deal with that physically, she had a great spirit about it. How do you think that shaped her as an adult? Or do you think it had no impact on her as far as going through that into adulthood?
I think it definitely did. Some of the lasting effects were, she was a great runner. She took state in cross country as a freshman, very talented soccer player. And with that kind of damage to the nose, while she wanted to keep playing soccer, we were strongly against it because the surgeon who put it back together said, things kind of literally hanging on by a thread. I don't recommend any, balls or feet or anything to the head going forward, which she still played, and she probably broke it 1 or 2 more times.
Her nose became a magnet for that ball.
It did.
And the doctor said you could lose your nose completely because if the blood flow stops. And so it was hard navigating, which she loves soccer so much. And I quit going to the games, like I can't watch. And then I finally went to one, and again, that ball was coming right towards her head. She put her head down and it cut right there. And I'm like, there's blood on the field, get her off. And I said, you're done. I go, you can hate me now, but you understand someday. And as she told us that was the hardest part of the whole crash, it's the thing that she loved the most was soccer. She wanted to go to college and do all that, was taken away from her. And she had to navigate through that. And that was, always hard on her.
Her identity was part of that too, wrapped up in being a very talented soccer player.
Yeah.
Again, when those things kind of get stripped away and you sort of have to reinvent yourself, or not hang so tightly onto the things you do don't define who you really are, right? But being 17, that's a big concept for adults to try to get our heads right sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be the rabbit hole I just took us down. So thank you. All right, Jason, with question for you. So take us into the beginning of Wraith Systems. what was happening in life, career, and what was the idea when that idea started becoming real?
Sure.
And I know this has been going for a while, even though.
Yeah, we're at 20 years this year, 2006 when it started.
20 years become an overnight success.
Kind of, yeah. So left active duty '02, took the job out here at Fort Worth, and I was in pilot training, which was a lot of courseware development, syllabus. The airplane wasn't even around. They hadn't even really cut metal yet. But we were building the training that ultimately pilots and maintainers who were going to fly, fix, keep the airplanes going down the road in years were working on. I didn't particularly care for it. It was for me, very difficult leaving the cockpit. I mean, your office view is the world.
Yeah.
To sitting in a windowless cubicle with fluorescent lights and stale air, sitting at a desk all day. I apologize for the engineers who love that environment. It was a challenge for me.
He never had a real job.
Gosh, here we go.
When I met him, he was a ski instructor. He was been a gymnastics instructor. He was a recon Marine, and then he was flying jets. So when he got a job and there's fluorescent lights in a cubicle, he was losing his mind, which is great.
Yeah.
That is what pushed him to go into the simulator and learn all about
Well,
that.
yeah, no, the difficulty was, the enemy of great is good. If you were just content, it wouldn't have pushed me to do a few other things.
Yeah.
So the things that were happening at the time, by the way, those were real jobs. Just she equates those to wearing like slacks and a collared shirt's a real job, because everything else I wore was like a flight suit's glorified pajamas, fire retardant, swim instructor, ski instructor. Usually you're wearing something other than, a suit. But
Right.
anyway, I think they're real jobs.
Yes, they are.
So the cube was difficult. I put in for an inter-service transfer, which is what took me from the Marine Corps to the Navy. And I stayed in the reserve. So the reserves, I was able to go fly as a flight instructor 1 week out of the month. So 3 weeks in the cubicle, working on the airplane, pilot training, 1 week actually in the airplane flying with students, which I loved. Instructing was by far probably my favorite part of flying, and my passion was getting with those young students and teaching them how to fly.
Yeah.
And I will say I was absolutely blessed, beyond blessed, to sort of be the poster guy that was picked. Again, criminal justice, no engineer, no test pilot, no Top Gun. But I was sort of put out front in what has now become the pilot training aid. Then it was just a concept. The idea that when I went to flight school, hey, you're going to get a stack of out-of-date wire diagrams and pubs to teach you, read these 100 chapters to learn how to program the radio in the airplane, or what aerodynamics on this particular wing does. It was a lot. The academics in flight school when I went through, and it really didn't give you the practical application of, I've got the academic knowledge, but I've got to get into a simulator, an airplane, to actually apply it and get the muscle memory and commit it. Now with the advent of the iPhone was just coming out, touchscreen, you can now get a laptop and plug in the stick and throttle, and you could get Lockheed Simulator issued to you as a student and take it back to the barracks. You can go to the hotel or your room, and you can now practice touching, flying, a full exposure to the cockpit, which is way different than I went through. So I really appreciated being on that cutting edge. And that's now every pilot who flies an F-35, that's what he learns on. But back then it was just a concept. And because there was no requirement by the government, it was really getting a lot of pushback. I was using F-16 Thrustmasters, which is a video game stick and throttle to fly the F-35. And as it gained popularity and notoriety, I was in front of generals and admirals. I went up to Capitol Hill. I was in front of congressmen and senators, really trying to push this concept of pilot training. And I'm using the wrong airplane. And as a flight instructor in my, every other week when I go out and fly, if you would have brought that, if I would have brought that to me as a pilot, I would have laughed you out of there saying, this isn't bad training. This is negative training. This is not going to work. You need the real equipment.
Yeah.
And I probably spent a year as a subject matter expert with Lockheed saying, you have to get representative flight control, stick and throttle, and a desktop to go into your simulator. And it really was sort of ignored. So I said, well, I'm going to go and build those myself then. And again, criminal justice major. I had a family friend who is the electrical mechanical engineer. We got together with the quintessential cocktail napkin, and we sort of designed it. So I knew how they should look and feel, and he knew how to build them. So we built that first prototype in 2004,
Mhm.
and took it to Lockheed and plugged them in, and we were flying them, and it kind of took off from them. And this could be its own podcast. There's a lot of nuance I've probably forgotten more than I even remember that really drove that. But it was seeing a need, it not being met, and it really looked like it wasn't going to get filled. And I figured I would like to try this.
Well, he heard they had gotten a quote from another company to do this, and Jason said, I can do it cheaper. And he came home and told me that night. I'm like, how? How can you do it cheaper? You were, again, criminal justice major, and you have no engineering, no manufacturing. How? He's like, I don't know, but I know that I can. And that weekend we went out to a California for his aunt and uncle's anniversary party or something, and just you sitting right next to the family friend who could do all of those things, so at the right perfect time. And so Jason and him started that years ago. Now he's retired, and things have changed. Now Jason does all the 3D printing and everything's here in Texas. But it started out like, how do you think you can do that? And he just took the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step.
But it really was, for anyone listening, there was some discontentment at work. There wasn't, not to the point where, I can never be happy. I think there's something else out there. There was an opportunity, and I did kind of take a swing when I thought I saw one come across the plate. A little bit of risk involved, a lot of faith, and prayer for sure, and time. Again, 20 years ago, and for the most part, I had to keep another job up until COVID. So from 2006 to 2020, it sort of stayed on the side. I wouldn't call it a side hustle. It was more than that, but it wasn't enough to solely rely on the income. I had to do other things and keep that sort of cooking in the background until 2020. That's when I decided to go all in on it.
That's so important. I'm so grateful you say that, because when you think about how social media or even television shows portray scenarios, it could have sounded like you made it and then it just became this hit and you've got all these contracts, and no, for 14 years you carried.
Got to grind it out. It's sexy. It's behind the scenes. It's not very public. It's just the daily activity of keep moving, what's the objective? What's my goal for today? And what am I trying to accomplish in it? And try to minimize some of those other distractions. And that, you could do that for a day or a week, but if keeping after it sometimes is real easy to squirrel, to find other distractions or get discouraged. That's, another one you have to sort of, having her, my greatest cheerleader, has been amazing. If I couldn't get anything else out here, make sure you got a strong partner who supports you, encourages you, even when the reality looks like it's going to be close. We're not sure. We're like, all right, we'll make it. We got it. God's got us.
That's when you were talking about the book. So up until when you're talking about touch screens and all of that, it sounds like most of the learning to fly happened out of a textbook. And then you got your hands in a plane.
Right. So it was kind of a 3-step process. You check into flight school, you get all your publications, everything you needed to learn how the plane flies, and hydraulics and electrical and all those things, to include the maneuvers. Here's how you perform a loop. Here's how you join up in formation. Again, you can sort of visualize it, but it's not till you get into the simulator where you actually get to apply it. And that's, sometimes it could be a couple of weeks because there's so many students and so few sims, or the simulators are at various levels, where one is only teaching you how to fly instruments, one doesn't have a very good visual. So yeah, I'm trying to learn how to land on an aircraft carrier, but the visuals are so bad, it's not very realistic when you get into the real airplane. And it's almost like you're having to take those few procedures that I at least committed to memory, but now in the airplane, there's a whole new set of things, sensations and noises and things I have to apply. So if you can get those to them earlier at, a more affordable cost, you're really reducing the time to train, and then better pilots on the backside. So that was a lot of it. And then, having been an instructor at that same time I was at Lockheed, I'm looking at these 23, 24-year-old new ensigns and lieutenants, these newly minted officers in flight school who just came from college, and they're very comfortable with the touch screen. I'm trying to think what was before the iPad, but some sort of tablet or iPhone or BlackBerry. And I'm like, my generation is not very comfortable. I still want a piece of paper because that's how we learn. But these guys are very comfortable with that knowledge transfer right off of the screen. So how do we bring those two together? Yeah, it was a really good time, and I felt like I had some advantages by being in there and seeing, how the younger generation learns.
Yeah.
How I might be able to bring that back into the program. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's pretty cool though. We have F-35s going overhead all the time, but to look up and know that every single F-35 pilot has trained on the Jason stick and throttle because he didn't give up on his dream of Wraith systems. So,
well, in the stick and throttle is the product, right, that came out of that.
Yeah.
I think the part that is the unsung hero that I'm just keep hearing in my head was the academia trying to train pilots wrote really long textbooks and then at some point let them get in a simulator. But when you put somebody who actually has done the thing in control of how to train the thing, now you're putting their hands actually on the thing that they need to do. And not that they're not doing some learning and some reading,
Sure.
but it's not this, you didn't approach it from academia, you approached it from experience. And I think that is an innovation that you gave to the entire freaking industry.
Well, there was a lot of us voices championing it just because it was a little bit different. But well, thank you for that. And yeah, I am not academic by most standards. I operator and practicality. And if I had this when I was in flight school, I mean, I think that was such a simple motivator. But she was like, if I could go back and if this was issued to me the day I checked into the squadron, into the schoolhouse, holy cow, it would have made flying and getting through that program, I think, so much easier.
It's outside in. So inside out, right? Traditional education, the books, and then you get to the actually applying it. Outside in, you're like, no, that doesn't get you there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, people would have, the way you had to learn it, people would have had to have been really passionate and dedicated to want to stick with it. I mean, I have to believe a lot of people fell out of that arena, even in the military, because they couldn't stick with it.
Yeah. Because being under constant scrutiny and evaluation, going through any sort of training where every day is you've got eyeballs on you and just evaluating everything you do. You remember, flight school could be a challenge. You're only allowed to screw up 1 or 2 times in that 2.5 years it takes to get through the program.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go assign you to something other than airplanes. So, and that was kind of a sad thing to see. Sometimes you'd see guys who just, weren't able to stick with the program. And I'm not necessarily saying, well, if we had this, everyone would have made it.
Oh, sure.
But it certainly, I think, would facilitate that learning. And the F-35 is not the only plane, but it's unique in that they don't have a 2-seat trainer. So everything I flew, you always had an instructor in the back seat at least to kind of get you going and have some training wheels. In this airplane, the F-35, the first time you fly it, you're by yourself. So that sim and that training has to be pretty darn realistic and pretty good. So when you crawl in the cockpit the first time, when you go solo, there's nobody back there for you as you're learning just the ins and outs of that particular platform.
It'd be really interesting, and you probably already know this, and then I'll get out of my rabbit hole here. The success rate, right? People entering the flight school for whatever, maybe even the F-16, the success rate on the old way of training versus the success rate now that they have this technology and the ability to do the thing.
I don't have that number, but that would be fascinating to see, because the government, our taxpayer dollar, has already invested a significant amount of money to get these folks to a certain level as it is.
Yeah.
So it is always better, I think, if we could keep them, should they meet the standard, then you get through a year and then you get a trident, through attrition, you don't make the cut. Well, there's already been an investment in that person. So if we could keep them, I think everyone benefits from that.
I think you're going to find out what those statistics are, and I think you're going to see what a ripple effect you've had in that.
Into that.
Yeah, that's a good number. I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah. Okay, Jennifer, when you look at Press On and Train to Trust, what has your own life required you to understand before you could write those messages for other people?
I remember a pastor years ago he was speaking, and he said, this is where we're in Arizona, but he said, I've never been allowed to preach about something that I haven't lived ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it's true. And that's it with Press On and Train to Trust. Everything that I have to share, I personally have to go through it, and I've lived it. And I think one of the reasons that happens is we can't fake compassion. We can't, you actually have to go, at least in all of these books, everything I'm talking about and encouraging people on is I've had to live it. I mean, from not being able to cross the finish line in the marathon. I mean, this is endurance, but life, raising kids, and like even I decided that I wanted to get the Abbott 6 marathon medal, and back in 2018 or 19.
Yeah.
So I raised all this money for a charity, and I was going to go to Berlin in 2020, but then 2020 happened.
Yeah.
So again, one of those situations where you work, and it's not going to happen. So you can either give up or keep going. And it was put on hold for a couple of years. But now I'm back in, and I only have one more marathon. We have one in Tokyo that I have to do, and I can check that off the box. But it all comes down to just the perseverance and the endurance, and encouraging people along the way. When I do talk to people, or people talk to me, I can relate. And it's not just endurance stuff like marathons, but just life, and everything I write about, I've lived it. So.
Well, you bring such a level of optimism and light to any situation. You know, if somebody's having a tough time, you're going to find what's the positive intention behind the tough time, right? And you encourage them.
That's so good. And that's one of the things. It's also, there's one in the Press On, there's a story about when I was doing my first triathlon and I was swimming in open water.
Yeah.
I was so scared. I thought I was going to drown, and I wanted to quit. But this lady was on a kayak, and she came up next to me, and I think she's an angel. To this day, I think she's an angel because she was so encouraging, and she would say, "You're doing great. You're doing great. All you have to do is just get to that next buoy, and I'm right here. I'm watching you." And it was just amazing what you can do when somebody else believes in you so much.
Yeah.
You start to believe in yourself.
Contagious.
If she wasn't there offering those words of encouragement, I would have put my hand up and said, "Come get me, I'm out." So it showed the importance that we need each other, and we need to encourage each other, and we need to, believe like she did. She believed in me so much, I did start believing in myself. So I think if people do get encouraged from anything in those books, that would be why I wrote it, because this life can be hard.
Well, the devotionals, I've done some of your devotionals actually in the Bible app. How many have you written so far that are available on?
I just did one that's going to go live on the 22nd called Contagious Courage. That's a new one that's coming up, but I think it goes live on the 22nd. I think I have 10. But remember earlier I said I wanted to go ahead and take as many people with me as I can. One of the things YouVersion does to encourage their authors is they send you the statistics, and they give you a world map, or how many people are, the analytics. Is that
like a heat map? Yeah.
Like a map.
Yeah.
They've been downloaded over 500,000 times, but all over the world. And it's so cool to see people in Africa that are reading about the devotionals, and all over the world. I'm like, I never in a million years at 18 would have thought we wouldn't know about the internet and how it was going to work, or writing. So that's one of the most encouraging things is, and it all started by something that was bad, the bombings. That's what just had to have an extra boldness to, share my story and encourage others to not waste one more day. Well, you're gonna go.
Well, and that leads to the other piece here. On top of what you've created and built, the two of you started a nonprofit in 2021 called Innovative Faith-Based Projects. Tell us what led you to do that, and how it came to be.
Sure. Reluctance for one, if I could say. So we had done mission trips for several years. Our youngest had been to Africa. We'd been down to Honduras a couple of times, and do enjoy supporting that. In this particular case, when I was in Honduras, I had met a missionary who's from Azel. So he's a Fort Worth local Texas boy who
Probably watching right now. Hi, Donnie.
He might be. Hey, Donnie. Shout out to
There you
Donnie, an innovative. He's the one who said, don't forget to put that in. And amazing. So very successful home builder back here, and just felt the Lord was like, you need to give it all up. Didn't speak a lick of Spanish, by the way. Jumped in his car and drove down to Honduras.
Wow.
And got plugged into a group called CRF, Christian Relief Fund. And is amazing. When I met him, and just not what you would expect when you think of a missionary in your mind, he's not it. He's calculating and planning. He's an engineer at heart, and he wants to build and improve lives for people, not just give them stuff. Yeah. So he reached out to me in 2021 and said, hey, can we start a nonprofit? And I said, I don't know anything about that 501c3 and the tax implications. And I really pushed back on him a little bit. So he applied enough pressure where we walked that path. And I mean, a lot of things are difficult when you're on the outside looking in. And once we went through it and we stood up a new LLC, it's a nonprofit. And then that helps bring in funds from the US that go down and support the activities he's doing. So it's fixing up schools that are closed because they flooded and the drainage doesn't work, or they need new roofs, or there's no clean water. So clean water is one of the biggest ones we're doing, bringing in filtration systems and cisterns and water collection things, or tanks, so the kids and the teachers can have clean water. Yeah. But if he sees a project and there's something in need, I really am just sort of the US version of trying to bring the funds in, and then he goes down and actually is on site, bringing in professionals and employing local folks to put them to work, whether they're bricklayers or cement, but to try to bring in the crafts and the trades and produce work for them, as we're also improving lives for the kids and the folks down there. So yeah, that was I wish I could say it was my idea. I did enjoy doing that and supporting him, but the nonprofit was really the next step he saw we needed to do. And then I just figured out, how do we run the traps in the US to set that up.
And we've been able to help other nonprofits, people that they want to do the same thing that Donnie wanted to do, but didn't know what steps to take. Yeah. You already walked down that path. Yeah. It was easy to share the knowledge with others. We've got friends that started a nonprofit called Wished Events, and they were in our home group and knew that Jason and I started that. And so they're like, teach us, what do we do? So it's nice to see how that's, helping others as well.
So don't let not knowing how to do something stop you. Take the first step. And it's funny, she loves to say engagement brings clarity, but to sit there and go, well, I don't know how to do that, a little bit of a cop out, is because once you got the internet, you got YouTube, for crying out loud. There's so many ways and so many people willing to share. If I want to get to where you are or what you've done, there's usually ways to find it. And then you just start taking those steps. You're going to make mistakes. Absolutely. You're going to fail. Yep, for sure. If that's going to keep you from starting, that's, what do you say? The first ingredient to success
is failure.
It's failure.
And everything's hard until it's easy. And only thing worse than, I always say, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Not my quote, but I say it so much, I always say. But the pain of discipline, doing hard things, or the pain of regret. So hopefully we can encourage someone out there, if they're wanting to start something or build something, or that don't let not knowing what the next step is keep you from doing it. Just reach out. Someone can help you, just like you helped our friends. So
as a coach, one of the ways so sorry.
All right. And if you fail, good. That's how you learn. Failure, you learn faster than anything else. You know what not to do the next time.
As coaching others who are looking to make big transitions, and one of the ways that I say it to them is, which do you want more? The desired outcome that you are shooting for, or the fear of failing? Which one's stronger for you? And if your answer is going to be a fear of failing, then don't start. Because you're not going to stick with it. Well, no, I want the outcome. Well, then you want the outcome more than fear is what you're saying. Okay. Then you have to remember that, because the fear is inevitable. It's going to show up. Right.
And God spoke to my heart before I wrote Press Songs. I had to tell a lot of personal stories, and it wasn't highlighting my success. It was highlighting mostly all my failures. And I was nervous. And then I realized that the heart of my problem was I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of everybody to think, man, how many times did you have to fail? But people don't relate to just instant success.
Yeah.
They can relate if it took a lot of failures before
Sure.
you got to the finish line, a
Yeah.
lot of things that happened. And so I had to, there's a quote, I read it in a book recently, but she said, the lady was going to post something on Instagram or on social media, and then she started worrying about what everyone was going to think.
Mhm.
And then she goes, then I thought, I just need to care less. And her husband said, you need to care less because you care more. You care more about helping people than how you're going to feel in that moment.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I had to get to that point with writing and sharing so many personal things. I need to care less because I care more about helping other people. So,
Well, and it's where people, to your point, it's where people can relate, right? Social media, reality shows, all those things for the most part paint this picture of perfection, which is really not achievable, and it's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
And
if I could just add one bit on to people wanting to transition, criminal justice major, focused on flying airplanes. So my partner did all the heavy lifting, the manufacturing. I just knew how they should fly and feel. And 2 years ago in 2024, when he said he was out, I basically had to reinvent myself in my mid 50s. I couldn't even spell CAD back then, computer aided design.
yeah.
And I had to learn about 3D printing and manufacturing. And it was a whole new world. And I will tell you, I failed a lot. I'll bet the first 2 years, I can't even tell you how many failed parts and designs ended up in the trash. But that's where learning occurred, and it never could have happened. But if I was too timid, well, I got to make sure this is exactly right and perfect before I hit print. I want that part to be right. I don't think those iterations is where that was the true education that came through. Discouraging at times, absolutely. Did it come at a cost? Yep, probably about what I would have paid in tuition had I gone back to school to get a degree or certificate, in this case in SolidWorks or 3D modeling or in 3D printing. So yeah, there is a fearlessness to it, with the understanding failure is part of the process.
Yeah.
Not fun, but definitely part of it to make that transition like I did. Because, and the last thing is, God, why didn't you give this to me in my 30s when I had more energy, or I had, the time to be, imagine where I would be if I started this 30 years ago, not 2 years ago. And he's like, hey, nothing was an accident. There's no shortcuts to this. And everything you did that you might have felt was a holding pattern or a waste of time was all training. And the things that you learned in those jobs, or those positions, even if you didn't think they were applicable, every one of those is now built into what's helped here. If I just got sort of chutes and laddered right to the top to this position, I know it would have failed, because I needed more skills and more tools in the bag than I would have gotten taking those shortcuts or not having what felt like detours along the way. Israelites in the desert for 40 years.
And the back of my book, Train to Trust, that's pretty much everything he was saying, is we need to get to the point where we just trust in God's ability and his timing and his methods. And sometimes, most of the time, we have a problem with the timing and the methods, but he knows what he's doing and his timing is perfect. And if we just remember to trust in his abilities, not ours, then it'll happen. But yeah, the timing and the methods can get us sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like we skirted over something I want to circle back to just a little bit, because I know you all, so I know about what you've created and sort of the impact it's had. But that's your intellectual property, right? The stick and throttle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you built an entire business around it with Wraith Systems. And it sounds like that became your exit strategy at some point, even though it took time, right?
Okay.
How can you share a little bit about the success that has come from you being faithful and patient and sticking with it?
Sure. And it's the monetary is great. The accomplishment of seeing something that you built or was an idea or dream actually come into reality.
Yeah.
And then when I see those airplanes overhead every day, knowing that in some small way we contributed to that, super cool. Even more so is her office is next door. I got 2 daughters downstairs. My dog comes to work with me every day. Like, there is a quality of life to having a career or a job that I wake up in the morning, because I've had those jobs where you're just like, oh, by Sunday morning, you're already getting depressed because Monday's around the corner.
Yeah.
This has allowed us to build something that, this shop where we're at now is 5 minutes down the road from the house. Talking about increased traffic and, gridlock in the Metroplex, it's nice to be this close. So trying to build and craft something the way I wanted it. There's not a lot of travel involved.
Yeah.
So the financial component was one aspect of how do I want to live, what do I want my life to be like?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of facets, I think, that went into that. And again, years of just not trying to rush it and slowly put the pieces in place, or realizing that's not what I wanted. Let's move that. And so asking God for that direction, inspiration, correction. And if I need a course correction along the way, I give him full permission to kind of give me the debrief in pilot terms, to let me know what's working and what's not, and maybe what we need to readjust or refocus on.
Yeah. Well, and I know we're a little over, but I do want to kind of ask about this one too before we wrap, if that's okay. So when you think about the people listening who are still in the middle of building, healing, leading, believing, or becoming, what do you want them to carry forward from both of your stories?
Start when you finish.
Okay.
I think that if you have a humble boldness, humble meaning, Jason, I understand that we can do nothing apart from God, but with him, there's nothing we can't do. All things are possible. But always taking the humble attitude that, thank you, Lord, that you've given us this opportunity. Let us honor you by being bold, by being brave, by doing things that if you don't show up, we can't do it. And then it makes the reward so much greater because he's with you the whole time. And we want to have contagious courage. We would love to, anyone that was listening to this, if they just needed a little push, that hopefully his story and everything else will encourage them to do those things as well. But a humble boldness is key to a life well lived, I think.
Courageous courage. Nice little plug for your next week. I know that.
You might have a marketing background there a little bit too.
If you haven't signed up for the YouVersion devotional, you can do that.
That's funny.
That's right.
I don't even know if I could top that, because so much of it overlaps with it. Just keep moving that direction. If there's adversity, difficulty, you're probably on the right path, because doing something new, which it sounds like that's what you're trying to do, whether for yourself or create something new that the world hasn't seen, or a better version of it. I would say never take a no from somebody who doesn't have the authority to say yes. So as you're trying to do those things, whether it's I need to get a loan, we want to know if we can get into this building or get a lease, or can I find someone to make this for me? And usually you're always going to run into that gatekeeper, and they're first, almost everyone, something new you bring to them is weird, is different, it's going to be no. It's like, well, I don't accept that because you couldn't say yes to me in the first place. So I will keep maneuvering and probing the perimeter, and look, exploit and look for the weaknesses. Yeah. And all that does is it hones your message, your elevator speech. It might hone your business plan, and it will force you to sharpen and refine the thing you're trying to do. Not you keep hitting your head against the wall, which means this isn't worthwhile or worth doing. And they're, again, praying about God's direction or redirection can certainly help you if this really is barking up the wrong tree, or you're just hitting the headwinds that every successful enterprise is going to run into.
If the road feels like it's all uphill, you're on the right road, because faith does not make things easy. It makes things possible. And so don't get discouraged when things are hard. That's going to happen. It just shows how much you want it. How much do you want this? And just keep going.
Yeah. As we're wrapping, I will say this too. The other element to that is when things get really hard and really complicated, and those barriers can also be evil, trying to keep you from the great outcome on the other side, right? To what it is. So sometimes we just have to look at that adversity from a standpoint of, this is here with an intention, and I've got to move through it. It doesn't matter where it came from. If I don't move through it, then I'm not moving forward.
Right.
So thank you guys both. For those watching, subscribe on Spotify, on YouTube. We interview great people like the McAlisters weekly, and it's just an opportunity to share with you how it's possible for you too. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer and Jason. And we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.